Happening overnight, a former club with a troubled past is once again at the center of an investigation after a shooting early this morning.
Just 2 weeks ago, a Memphis rapper, Richlord, was shot here. He died from injuries this week.
About the only number you need to remember is that it has been open for 15 months and we've had 2 homicides here already.
On the night of June 10th, 2018, Derrick Richlord Harris stepped into V-Live, a gentleman's club tucked into the busy Hickory Hill area of southeast Memphis. By this point in his life, Richlord was a well-known figure in the city's streets hierarchy, a man whose name carried both respect and danger. Inside the club, the air was thick with smoke, music, and tension, the kind that always sits just beneath the surface in places where rivals, egos, and reputations collide. Witnesses say the atmosphere changed shortly after Richlord arrived. An argument broke out inside the club, sharp enough to turn heads and pull security towards the commotion. No one agrees on exactly what sparked it. Some people claim it started with a personal dispute. Others said it felt like something bigger, something premeditated. And in the hours after the shooting, that uncertainty would fuel endless speculation. What is confirmed is this: the argument moved outside, and within seconds, everything erupted. Gunfire broke the night open in the parking lot of V-Live. Multiple shots were fired. When the smoke cleared, 32-year-old Richlord was lying on the ground, critically injured, fighting to stay conscious. Another man, later identified as Marquise Hyman, was also shot but managed to survive. Patrons scrambled for cover. Cars sped off in every direction, and the club that had been loud just minutes earlier fell into chaos.
Police then raided the club, finding guns and cash.
Paramedics rushed Richlord to the hospital, but the severity of his injuries became clear almost immediately. He wasn't just another shooting casualty. He was a recognizable figure, someone whose presence meant something in Memphis. And even as police taped off the scene and the media began reporting a shooting at V-Live, the streets were already asking a different question: who did this and why? Richlord's funeral came only days after the announcement of his passing, but in Memphis, the news had already spread far beyond his neighborhood. The church filled early. Family members arrived first, quiet and exhausted, still trying to understand how a routine night at a gentleman's club had ended with the man they loved fighting for his life. Behind them came friends, local artists, and people who had grown up with Richlord, faces marked by grief, disbelief, and the kind of anger that simmers when someone taken too soon leaves too many questions behind. Before his name became tied to one of Memphis' most discussed unsolved homicides, Richlord was known first as a father, a friend, and a man whose presence carried weight wherever he went. To understand why his passing resonated the way it did, you have to understand who he was in life. Richlord emerged from White Haven, a neighborhood often called Black Haven or BHZ. He was sharp, charismatic, and understood both the risk and the unwritten rules of the world he moved through. People who knew him described him as one who learned early how to navigate the blurred lines between survival, loyalty, and ambition. He was sharp, both in the streets and in conversation, and carried the kind of confidence that doesn't have to be spoken to be understood. He became a familiar face in Memphis's underground rap scene, not just for his music, but for the energy he brought into a room. Friends recall him cracking jokes, hyping people up, and moving with the charisma of someone who didn't need validation from anyone. Even people who clashed with him admitted he had a sort of gravitational pull and aura that made him hard to ignore. Even his critics admitted he stood out. He was outspoken, willing to address beefs directly, and unafraid to challenge big names. In fact, he became known as one of the first artists to publicly diss Young Dolph, doing so a full year before Dolph released King of Memphis in 2016. In a city where rivalries and alliances constantly shift, that kind of boldness never goes unnoticed. But behind the bravado was a man deeply connected to his family. He had children, 5, according to those close to him, and people say he went out of his way to provide for them, even when he was caught up in a lifestyle that constantly pulled him towards danger.
I'm trying to get in it for, I don't want no fame though, you know what I'm saying? I really just want the money. I ain't gonna lie, like talking about they chasing the dream and all this. I don't gotta be Jay-Z at the end of this. I just want enough money to take care of my family, man, you know what I'm saying? Really, you know, just have so we can get out the streets, man, you know what I'm saying? A lot of my niggas still in the streets.
Those closest to him talk about his soft spots, the way he lit up around his kids, the pride he carried when their names came up, and the way he tried to build a legacy that would give them more than he had grown up. But the legacy he built was also one that stemmed from the streets. Looking at the danger surrounding his life and the retaliation that followed his passing, you have to realize the world he moved through, the traveling vice lords, and the clique he was most associated with, the Junkyard Dogs, known citywide as the JYD. The JYD are a subset of the almighty vice lord nation, a structure that began in Chicago and spread throughout the Midwest and the South. In West Tennessee, especially Memphis, the JYD carried a reputation for being one of the most aggressive and feared branches. Their members were implicated in extortion, shootings, robberies, and later, a series of retaliations that federal prosecutors would tie to an internal gang war. Within that world, Richlord wasn't just another name. Locals and former members often described him as a high-ranking vice lord, someone associated with the organization's top hat symbolism, a mark reserved for those with seniority, respect, or leadership. Whether he held a formal rank or was simply treated like a leader, the perception carried weight. When Richlord moved through a room, people noticed. When he spoke, people listened. And with power came enemies. The vice lord's historical rivals, the gangster disciples, were always part of the equation. Neighborhoods in Memphis have long been divided along gang lines, including shifting alliances and ongoing tensions. Anytime a high-ranking vice lord traveled outside his zone, especially into places like Hickory Hill, where V-Live was located, the risk was amplified. But some of the most persistent rumors didn't point outward at all. They pointed inward. In online discussions after his passing, locals suggested that tension inside the traveling vice lords had been boiling long before the shooting. One Reddit user claimed that after Richlord, Big Country, and Pokey were hit around the same period, stuff got crazy within the VL structure, hinting at deeper fractures and power struggles that may have contributed to the street retaliation that surrounded him. That internal turmoil wasn't just gossip. Years later, federal indictments would confirm that the JYDs were responsible for a spree of attempted hits and retaliatory shootings during a gang war in 2020, events tied loosely but unmistakably to leadership disputes and unresolved vendettas. In a world where loyalty is essential for survival, the idea of betrayal becomes a shadow that never fully disappears. For Richlord, these dynamics shaped everything: how he moved, who he trusted, and how he protected himself. People closest to him say he always expected trouble. He had already survived 2 shootings in the past, and according to those who knew him, he carried himself like a man who understood that survival was never guaranteed. If Richlord was already known in Memphis, the events that pushed his name into national rap conversations happened in December 2015, during a night that had become one of the most infamous stories in recent Southern hip-hop history, the Shy Glizzy chain incident. Shy Glizzy, a rising Washington, D.C. rapper, was performing in Memphis at Dream Nightclub, a venue where the energy was always unpredictable. For artists coming from out of town, Memphis had unwritten rules, and one of them was simple: you check in with the right people. Black Youngster had allegedly told Richlord to take care of Shy Glizzy and keep him safe while he was in town.
He like his homeboy, you know what I'm saying? Finna come to town, do a show. You dig what I'm saying? He like his finna come down, do a show. Like, he really vouching for this. Like, man, I'm like, who? He like, man, Shy Glizzy finna come to town, do a show, bro. I ain't in town, bro. I'ma tell him to get with y'all, go to the club with y'all, bro. Make sure he's straight, man. Make sure with him, you know what I'm saying? So,
according to widespread street lore, Glizzy didn't check in or even seem to want to acknowledge Richlord or his people, so he kept his distance.
Most of them come straight in with he run up to him, say whatever he said to him. I couldn't, you know, we were kind of far back, so I ain't hear the dialogue, you understand me, what they were saying. I see him getting in the face.
When the show ended, a scuffle broke out.
The 2 that were with Glizzy, they standing there looking while the going on. He had 2 with him, you feel me? They standing there looking while going on.
In the chaos, Glizzy's signature gold chain was snatched, and within hours, Memphis' social media page lit up with photos, videos, and taunts.
So Motor calling me like, what, let me take a picture with it, bro. So, you know, I'm already knowing my full clip ain't got that Smut ain't got that Euro ain't got that Tall T. My nigga them who in the club with me, my nigga them ain't had, you know, I call Lil Creek, I call Casino. They got the him and little cash, you heard me? They done got this main chain. I don't know, you know, it was so much commotion. I can't lie to you, homie. I don't know how they got it.
Two local rappers, Big Moda and D Money Stacks, posted clips bragging about having the chain, accusing Gizzy of disrespect and challenging him to come get it back. The story spread instantly. By the next morning, national hip-hop blogs were running headlines about the Memphis robbery, and in the middle of the discussion, one name kept coming up: Richlord. He wasn't the one holding the chain on camera, but his presence hovered around the story like a shadow. Many claim the snatch happened because Gizzy didn't check in with him. Others believe that Memphis artists were simply proving a point about their city's respect system. Whatever the truth, Richlord suddenly found himself at the center of a viral moment, one that both elevated his visibility and drew unwanted attention. While Richlord Harris was respected throughout Memphis, his relationships with artists outside the city weren't always smooth. One of the most talked about tensions he addressed publicly was his issue with Money Man.
We can charge you with a felony because we know your threat's crib. I'm like, man, I don't know what you talking about. I don't got nothing. I'm out of town right now. I ain't even gonna be there when he come in town. You know what I'm saying? But that shit right there, it made me calm, you know what I'm saying? Them folk told me if I don't put a statement on Facebook saying ain't nothing gonna happen to him, they gonna charge me with a felony. Leave it up for 24 hours. You heard?
In interviews, Richlord spoke openly about the friction. According to Richlord, the trouble didn't start with the usual rap industry friction. It started with something far more serious. He claimed that after a disagreement between them, Money Man called the police on him, and not just anywhere. He allegedly had officers sent to Richlord's mother's home. To Richlord, who lived by a strict street code, that crossed the line no artist or man should ever cross.
That man is straight. He lucky. If I ain't love little cousin like I love them, we would've did them at the pier. Them folk, I guess his ass and Tutu, his manager Tutu, and the club owners at Pier Pass, and them folks sent the police. I'm out of town, my nigga. Them folks sent 10 cars of police to my mama's house, Pete. You heard me? Damn. Yeah, them niggas from rest, man. Yeah, they did that. That's real talk. I'm out of town, nigga. My mama called me hysterical like I done killed that already, talking about how they pulled up 10 cars deep to her house. So I tell her, get a detective my number. I don't know what they talking about. You know, my little nigga don't be doing so much shit. I'm thinking this finna be some real shit. You know what I'm saying? I'm out of town though, man. The detective get on the phone talking about some money, man, bro. It's 10 police cars in my mama's house.
He spoke about the situation with a calm intensity, making it clear the issue wasn't fabricated or exaggerated, but the conflict didn't end there. Richlord described another moment when he and Money Man ended up in the same place, a live performance where Richlord showed up with a deep entourage. When Money Man realized who had just walked in, Richlord said the rapper panicked. According to him, Money Man quickly pulled several people, some of whom Richlord actually liked and respected, between the two crews to prevent any encounter.
After that happened, you already know, we hit that 60 deep. I fought the niggas from Castalia, Ghost Mob. Shout out to Big Bunny, man. Shout out to Trail, man. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, man. Followed them ghosts out of Castalia, man. About 20 of my travelers with me, man. You know what I'm saying? We hit that whole deep as a mother. Scared the shit out of them, you know what I'm saying? If I ain't little cousin, then it would've popped off in that hoe, you know what I'm talking about? You know, I do my niggas though. Yeah, I'm riding with them, I fuck with them, you know what I'm saying? So
in a world where perception is everything, and where even small slights can turn into lasting grudges, this conflict added yet another layer to this list of people who might have seen Richlord as an opponent, or at the very least, someone they didn't want around. And like so many parts of his story, this feud remained unresolved when he was hit. The Memphis Police Department opened a homicide investigation, but from the very beginning, detectives found themselves facing the same challenges that plague many high-profile street homicides in the city. Too many witnesses, but not enough willing to talk. Police documented the basics. The shooting occurred outside V Live, a gentleman's club known for its chaotic atmosphere and long history of retaliatory attacks. Show casings were collected. Surveillance footage was pulled. Officers interviewed patrons, dancers, staff, anyone who might have seen the confrontation unfold, but the critical details never came together. Most people who were present that night scattered the moment gunfire erupted. Those who later spoke to police offered vague descriptions of conflicting accounts. Some claimed the shooter came from the crowd. Others suggested there were multiple gunmen. A few insisted the argument inside the club had been heated enough that someone had clearly come looking for trouble. Yet, despite all these hints, nothing could be confirmed. And then there were the people who knew exactly what happened. happened, but would never put their name on a statement. In the months after Derrick Richlord Harris's passing, his family did something the streets never could. They took the fight into a courtroom. With no arrests made, no suspects named, and the Memphis Police Department unable to move the case forward, Richlord's loved ones filed a $20 million lawsuit against the former owner of V Live, the gentleman's club where he was shot. According to the complaint, the club had failed to provide adequate security, failed to control retaliatory attacks inside the building, and failed to protect patrons from the danger that ultimately claimed Richlord's life. City officials seemed to agree. Within days of the incident, Memphis authorities shut V Live down, declaring it a public nuisance after yet another act of retaliatory attacks on its property.
It was connected to 2 murders. Police were also called here 64 times for illegal activity.
For the family, that closure became part of their argument. If the city believed the club was too dangerous to stay open, then someone should have been held accountable for allowing it to reach that point. To this day, no one has ever been arrested or charged for the homicide of Derrick Richlord Harris. Rest in peace, Derrick Richlord Harris.